what I heard on the phone wasn't making sense to me. It was 2001, and I was up in Sacramento checking out a food and wine festival. At the time, there weren't a whole lot going on, and my boss wanted to host one down here, so he sent me up to Sacramento to go check it out. I was learning all about the logistics, how security works, ticket taking, working with vendors. I went up to the hotel to grab a quick lunch, and my boss told me I needed to call my dad's neighbor, Jim. What Jim was saying on the phone was not making any sense. He said that my dad was kind of wandering around the neighborhood, muttering to himself, not really clear, sometimes screaming. He even cursed, very unlike my dad. He did not use foul language. He was a very strict man, but loving and kind. And this behavior was unlike him. So I called my boss and let him know what was going on. I called my sister for moral support. She lived in Temecula. She had a 3 and 5-year-old, so she couldn't really help. But she said if it was an emergency, she would come up and help assist. So I flew home, went straight to Dad. Jim was right. Joe was right. My dad was not well. After some time, I was able to convince him to go to Ventura County Medical Center, Behavioral Health, over on Hillmont, Ventura. They took some blood, maybe it was alcohol. They checked his eyes, see if they were dilated, maybe he was on drugs. Finally, they gave him an MRI. Good news and bad news. Good news is my dad's not crazy. Bad news is that he had some gray matter damage to his brain, probably due to a small stroke. I asked the doctor, am I gonna get my dad back? Well, we don't know. But after some rehab and a little bit of time, I got my dad back. 2 years later, my daughter was 10, I was 33, my dad was 63. Dad had another stroke, and this time it was a lot worse. Mentally, he was fine. Physically, there were issues. He lost the ability for his fine motor skills, so like holding a fork or writing with a pen was incredibly difficult. The remote control now became a two-handed job. We also had to transition him to and from his wheelchair, and so my sister and I got together and decided that the best course of action at that time was to put him in a facility. Luckily, there was one very close to my house. I met with the manager. It was very good. We felt comfortable leaving him there. So we started the process of eliminating. We tried to include Dad in some of these decisions because he couldn't take much. The bowling ball got donated. The hundreds of vinyl records that he had of like show tunes, and my dad loved classical and 60s and 70s, all of it went to my house, in my garage. But we wanted to keep that. So it all went well for a while, and we got into a schedule. Every Saturday I'd go see him right at noon. If you were on time, you were late. If you were early, you were on time. I'd get there at 12. I'd take him out to lunch. It was usually nothing fancy. We'd go to Taco Bell or Panera. If it was a fancy occasion, we went to Andrea's Seafood Market. He loved their fish and chips down over in the Ventura Harbor. And we'd eat, and mostly we'd talk and visit and gossip. There's a lot of gossip at the assisted living facilities. Not only with the staff, but with who's moving rooms and who went on bingo and who's moving rooms and why, and who's not getting along and who is getting along a little too well. And Dad didn't have a whole lot to do, so he watched a lot of TV and he watched a lot of documentaries. So I'd learn about the history of baseball, and I'd learn about the war, many of them. And they had a documentary one time on like ice mummies, and I was like, all right. I stocked him up every Saturday with Hershey bars, no almonds, and hot Cheetos, which he called devil sticks because they turned his fingers red. He goes, give me those devil sticks. And someone there gave him a book of jokes, which was the bane of me. All the time, every time, bad jokes to everyone that helped us and served us at Taco Bell and whenever we went to Andrea's. On Tuesdays, I'd come over. not to take him out, just for a quick visit. Usually we'd watch Jeopardy. My dad was very smart. We'd follow along. He'd immediately turn the channel if Pat Sajak came on with Wheel of Fortune. He did not like Pat Sajak, I don't know why. If Mariska Heart Decay, I'm probably getting that last name wrong, but Law and Order SVU, you all know, that was my dad's girlfriend. Could not turn the channel. So that went on for 15 years.
Wow.
In 2020, COVID happened. We were all kind of unsure, but if you remember, nursing homes got hit pretty hard, and we're probably the first ones to get hit. I masked up, put gloves on, they took my temperature, I grabbed Cheetos, ran to the store, grabbed Cheetos, grabbed Hershey bars, and went to go visit him. Walked down the hallway, went to his room, went to go visit him for the last time, and I said, Dad, it's not gonna be that long. We don't know what's going on, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I've got you stocked up. Here's my number. I wrote it in big letters on a piece of paper. And I said, if you need anything, you reach out and you call me. I left. I tried to reach out a few times, but getting a nurse on the phone, and then getting them to go to his room and get him transferred and get him to the phone. I mean, he didn't have a phone in his room, so going through all that was difficult. And I think I maybe talked to him about 2 times. April came along just a few months later, and the nursing home called and they said, your dad's not well. So I masked up, gloved up, they took my temperature, and I walked down the hallway. I'd walked down a million times before. And they were right, Dad was not well. I called my sister, and I told her that she should probably come up, and I sat with him and held his hand. He was unresponsive, but we just chatted, or I chatted. And a couple hours later, he passed. I am so incredibly grateful for that time I had with him. I learned a lot. I learned about baseball. I learned about ice mummies. I learned about how to give grace. I learned you can be strong, but you can also ask for help. I learned a lot of wonderful things. I miss my dad. I even miss his really, really bad dad jokes.